Welcome to our Street View episode for November 2018. Today we're going to be talking not only about the results of the Toronto real estate market performance, but we've got the Supreme Court of Canada, cannabis, and the tech bubble that's happening in Toronto, and how real estate ties it all together. Come on, let's go and talk about it. Let's start with the housing market update, where we always look at the supply and demand will dictate the results that we're achieving. And so for the month of October in 2018, overall listings were down 2.7%. And we can see that there's some seasonality to that, and it's very consistent with what we've seen in prior years, as illustrated in this chart. But what I want to point out is that the overall active listings are sitting right around 19,000 for the Greater Toronto Area. And how does that compare with last year? It's within 120 listings at a 19,000. So very, very small difference year over year. So the number of listings pretty much the same. So let's talk about what does that mean for the number of sales taking place. Well, the number of sales actually went up 6% compared with year over year. And so the number of transactions on a year-to-year basis sounds pretty good, but let's talk about how many sales we've had in the whole year, like year to date. And that number is 67,000. How does that compare with last year at this time? It was 80,000. So that's down 16% year over year. If I go back 2 years ago, 2016 was a monster year. It's 32%, meaning that this time 2 years ago, the number of sales that had happened were almost 100,000 sales. And it is the record holder for the number of sales, greatest number of sales in 2016. And so we're seeing much fewer transactions happening, but the supply side is relatively static. And how does that relate to price growth? Great question. It was up 3.5% on a year-over-year basis. And that's a very moderate growth. We've talked about this. This is the new normal. When the Bank of Canada raised interest rates yet again on October the 24th, they raised the key overnight lending rate 0.25%. That's the third increase so far this year. That controls the affordability and buyers' ability to drive price up. And for sellers, you have to recognize that we're in pretty much a balanced market in most of the areas. Let's get into the specifics. When we look at this chart, we like the different housing types, and it'll give us the 416 and the 905 results in the separate columns. And it does a great job of illustrating what's going on a sales and average price scenario. So let's focus on the bottom right, because what's driving that 3.5% growth? It's condos. And condo apartments we're seeing are almost up 9% on a year-over-year basis in the 416, 6% in the 905. The other strong performer is definitely semi-detached homes in the 416. It's up 8% year-over-year, where we can see the detached for the 416, 905 is very flat, 1.4%, et cetera. So it's really about affordability, and it's in the less expensive housing types in both the 416 and the 905. And that's a trend that we're going to see continue moving forward. So let's talk about some of the other influencers for the Toronto real estate market. Our RE/MAX Hallmark third quarter report has just been published. It's got a lot of great market insights for Toronto, York Region, Durham, and Ottawa, but it also has several good articles on what's happening with key drivers in our real estate market for the Greater Toronto Area. The number one being the Supreme Court Canada's ruling with the Toronto Real Estate Board, forcing the release of sold data from the Toronto MLS. So what does that mean for you? It means that when you sell your home or you buy a property, that sold price is going to be out in the public realm. And there will be websites and service providers that will be marketing themselves, hey, come do business with us, look at our site, get all the information, the analytics that go along with it. There's going to be services where you're going to see them wanting to promote the idea, hey, find out the value of your home in today's market. Boom, click, give basic information, and then they spit out a price. And, I wish it were that simple, but it really isn't. And anybody that's had an experience to buy or sell some real estate recently, you'll recognize that it's not the case. Sold data is only one little piece of the puzzle. There's many other facets. However, what does this mean really? It means the loss of a little more privacy. And this seems to be the world we're living in. In the US market, they've been living with this reality for the last 10 years. And some of these innovations that I'm referring to is what we've seen happening in the US. So it's a reality, it's here, it's happened. So it's time to move forward. So a part of moving forward is the legalization of cannabis in Canada. And how does this impact the Greater Toronto real estate scene? There are two key considerations. If you're planning on growing marijuana in your own residence, the 4 plants, and you have a 500 square foot condo, it could have a negative physical consequence to the quality of the space. Humidity, mold, all of those things. If you have a 3,000 square foot home and you're growing 4 plants, might be a completely different issue. The physical damage may not be as prevalent. Now, if you grow marijuana, you might smoke marijuana inside the residence. And like smoking cigarettes inside a house, that has a negative impact to the physical condition of the property, and it does drive value down. There are many, many buyers that if they sense the property's been smoked in, they will not buy it, period. So just understand that that has a consequence. The second key thing that you really need to be aware of is the stigmatization of a property. There are many buyers that if they knew that marijuana or cannabis was being grown in the property, they would assume that it's maybe being consumed in the property, smoked in the property, etc. And that is a stigma that would influence their decision to buy the property. And that they may not choose to buy the property, and that drives demand down, and that'll keep price down for your home if you're growing or smoking cannabis inside the property. So whether it be physical damage or stigmatization, there's also the idea of disclosure. Do we have to disclose these things? And through the sale process, it's becoming increasingly concerning for all parties that we have clarity about whether cannabis has been consumed or manufactured inside the property. And as a matter of fact, if you're getting a mortgage on your property, which almost everyone does, the lender is going to want to know whether the property has had marijuana either grown in the property, whether illegally or illegally. So the banks don't really know 100% how to handle that. They may disallow the mortgage just on that fact. So caution is the watchword for those of us that might be considering growing or consuming cannabis in our residences. Did you know that there's a tech bubble happening in Toronto? And that Toronto ranks inside North America number 4 for drawing in tech talent in all of North America, right behind San Francisco, Silicon Valley, Seattle, Washington, and Washington, D.C. Toronto is number 4 in North America. Ottawa is number 13, Montreal number 14, and Vancouver is 25th on that list, done by C.B. Richard Ellis, which is a very large commercial real estate brokerage that does a lot of analytics and looking at where the demand for housing is. And so this idea is one of the key things that's driving condo values up almost 9%, as I just shared with you. And understand that in the southeast corner of Toronto, along Queens Quay East, and where the Toronto relief line is going to be built, the subway relief line, this is where the new tech hub for Toronto is going to be built in years to come. You've heard me talk about Sidewalk Labs. The Alphabet company, Google, is building their offices in this corner of Toronto. I'm telling you, this is what's going to fuel the condo growth for many, many years to come. And everybody wants a slice of it because they want to be involved in living and working right in the downtown core. And what we're building in the city, this part of the city, is going to be world class. And we're starting to get recognized for it in broader publications. So, a word from the wise, this is where a lot of growth is going to happen in values for real estate. So it's a very exciting time. So as the fall market is winding down very quickly, already we have many clients thinking about spring and taking advantage of making a move in 2019. Now is the time to be contacting us and getting us involved in the planning process. For any of you that need that initial consultation, no obligation, of course, we always like to chat with folks and help them make great decisions. You can contact Madeline and I at any time, and we'd be pleased to help you get on the path to success in 2019. So until next time, I am Matt Emerson of RE/MAX Hallmark, Emerson Group Realty. I'll speak to you again very soon.